This is a presentation of BSRN, Box Studios Radio Network. The Power Play Post Show is on the air, covering minor league hockey since 2003, and now covering the Binghamton Black Bears with news, reactions, and in-depth interviews only heard here. And now from the Box Studios in Kirkwood, New York, here is your host of the Power Play Post Show, Bob Howard.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Power Play Post Show. This is the show for February 12th, 2024. This is Season 13, Episode number 22, and 407 of the long-running podcast that is the Power Play Post Show. I am your host, Bob Howard. Thank you very much for joining us here on the show. I appreciate it, and we've got what I feel like is going to be a very interesting show. We got a lot to talk about. We have 3 games that were just played for the Binghamton Black Bears on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm recording this on Monday evening. As everybody knows, the Super Bowl was yesterday, and I was planning on doing this on Sunday evening, but I decided to hold off until today, and so now I'm doing this Monday evening. I just finished recording an interview with a Binghamton Black Bear, and I'll let you guys know that it is Nolan Egbert, goaltender for the Binghamton Black Bears. You'll hear that this upcoming Thursday on the Power Play Post Show. So I'm very excited to have that interview recorded and set up for this upcoming Thursday. But yeah, so let's get right into it. The Power Play Post Show is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on whichever platform you listen to your podcast and subscribe. Please join the Power Play Post Show Facebook group if you're not already there. Just go to Facebook and search for the Power Play Post Show and join. Check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your Binghamton hockey information and curiosity. And on this edition of the Power Play Post Show, not only will we be talking about the 3 games in 3 nights, we'll still have 6 more questions with Dan Wieber. And so last week, great interview with Dan Wieber. And we got 6 more questions with him. And you guys probably catching the theme on these 6 questions. But I think they're a lot of fun, and we're getting some interesting information out of that from some of the players. So here we go. So 3 games in 3 nights that just happened. 2 games in Motor City with a split, a win on Friday night 7-5, and a loss on Saturday night 3-1. And then on Sunday, a loss in Elmira Sunday 6-3. Now, as if you guys remember from when I was talking last week, this is the toughest road trip. This is it. We go to Motor City twice. We then have to get to Elmira, play a 1 o'clock game after playing a 6 o'clock game. I think the game on Saturday night finished around 8:34, right around there. Give or take a half hour to get back into the locker room, start getting everything off, and maybe you're out of there by 10:30. Then you're heading towards Jamestown, New York, where they stopped over and slept for about 4 or 5 hours after getting checked in. And then you get something to eat, and then you head towards Elmira, which from Jamestown is about 2 hours and 40 minutes, depending on how the traffic is. And traffic usually from Jamestown to Elmira is not too bad, at least the times that I've done that, which is not that many, but I know that stretch of I-86 or 17, and I know that it's usually not too bad. At least when you get into the more rural part of New York and that section. Either way. So that's what they did. There's a lot really to talk about here. So let's get into basically what happened on Friday, because Friday seemed to be the more successful of the games, I guess you could say, so to speak. So Connor McAnanima started, obviously, for the Binghamton Black Bears on Friday night, and Ricardo Gonzalez started for the Motor City Rockers. So those were your 2 goaltenders of record. Motor City started off with the first score of the game. Roman Gadet scored 10 minutes and 15 seconds into the first period. At that point, I was a little concerned that maybe the Black Bears were not getting off that fresh start. I did say that if you're going to win any game and have a successful weekend, you needed to win Friday. And I know that the weekend really wasn't as successful as I thought it could have been, but at least they did get this win. Black Bears came back with a goal from Gavin Yates at 15:52. You go into the second period, 44 seconds in. The newcomer, Andrew Utero, he scores. Gavin Yates gets an assist on that, along with Tyson Kirkby. That was even strength. Motor City then returns. This is the back and forth of this game. It was really just a back and forth game. On the power play, Motor City scores Jamison. I hear he does not like to be called Jamie, so we'll call him Jamison. Milan, he scores on the power play, 8:37 into the second. Just a few minutes later, Gavin Yates gets his second goal of the game with an assist from Leon Anderson at 11:56. Motor City then gets another goal, so we're now tied 3-3 from Ryan Rotundi at 16:31 mark. Binghamton ends the second period with a goal to go up 4-3 from Dakota Bond. Gavin Yates gets another assist. Tyson Kirkby also had an assist on that. So we go into the third period. Okay, we go into the third period, and we're still scoring like there's no tomorrow. Scott Coach gets the Motor City Rockers back tied again at 4. That was at 7:08. Literally 22 seconds later, Jesse Anderson scores his 5th of the season, if I remember correctly. At that point, Gavin Yates and Tyson Kirkby obviously gets the goal there. Now, Jesse Anderson was a D-man on Friday night and was moved to forward on Saturday. The Binghamton Black Bears then got another goal from Dakota Bond, power play. And a power play 2 minutes later for the Motor City Rockers. Jonathan Giuliano, he scores the power play goal at the 13:38 mark. That makes the game 6-5 at that point. And then the Black Bears get their 7th goal of the game with a Dakota Bond hat trick with the net pulled. It was an empty netter. So a lot of goals, 12 goals in this game. The Black Bears wasn't their typical shots on goal kind of game. 11 in the first period, 7 in the second period, and 11 in the third period for 29. But Motor City outshot them 12-13-9 and for 34. Okay, Gavin Yates had 2 goals and 3 assists on the game. Dakota Bond had 3 goals. So it was a pretty interesting game, and I think Tyson Kirkby assisted on pretty much everything. 1, 2, 3, 4 assists for Tyson Kirkby in the Friday game. Now the Friday game was what it was. There was a lot of goals. I don't think the goaltending was necessarily bad, but it wasn't necessarily great either. I could probably say that for the majority of the weekend. I'm not going to, say that, any one goaltender could have done that much better. But it felt like the team overall, the whole weekend seemed to be a little off. And there was a lot of penalties, right? So even in this particular game here, just way too many penalties for both of the teams, really. And Motor City's not necessarily a high penalized team, and the Black Bears are generally whatever happens with other people. So 30 penalty minutes for both teams each. The Black Bears had 5 power plays and Motor City had 10 power plays. So really a lot going on there. Motor City had 2 power play goals. The Black Bears had 1. All right. So that's that game, right? So let's move to the game that was a little bit more low scoring, but not necessarily going in the favor of the Black Bears. Motor City on Saturday wins 3-1. Binghamton did score the first goal of the game, right? Austin Thompson scored 11:29 into the first period with a Gavin Yates assist and Jesse Anderson with the assist. Both of those guys had really good weekends, to be perfectly honest with you. Then the Motor City Rockers scored 3 goals after that were basically not touched by the Binghamton Black Bears. In the second period, 12-20, George Holt scored even strength. And then at 17-14, Thomas Delaney scored. Thomas Delaney's had a pretty good series against the Black Bears. He's scored a few goals. He's been a part of a lot of the stuff going on for them. And then in the third period, at the 140 mark, Motor City scores a power play goal. Adam Kuhn. Now, the interesting part of this game was at the end of the second period, Austin Thompson was trying to leave the bench to go to the locker room. And he kind of jumped over and was going to skate out to the door. And the one of the referees, Milan, I think it was, basically put his hands on Austin Thompson, was pushing him back. Brant Sherwood had words with the referee, and then he got the boot, and not only got the boot, but also got a 1-game suspension for it. I think at this point, the Black Bears head coach, Brant Sherwood, who I absolutely love talking to, they're watching him every single game, every single thing he does. They're looking for a way to punish him, and they're going to continue to do that. If Brant listens to this and I could offer him one piece of advice, don't give them a reason. Don't do anything. I totally get it. I don't want referees touching my players. If that was me in your place, I wouldn't want that either. But at this point, they're watching you. Dave Jackson's watching you. Paul Jean's watching you, who was actually on the ice as one of the other referees. And Don Kernan's watching you. You know it. I know it. Don't bite. Don't give them that opportunity to do what they did, which is, again, suspend him from a game, right? Probably the only coach right now in the league that's been suspended more than once. And so just don't want to do that. But that happened in this game. Now, this game was a little bit more interesting in the sense that Binghamton outshot the Motor City Rockers 38-18, okay? And they just couldn't get anything past Trevor Babin. Trevor Babin was really, really, really good. Without a doubt, he came back after being suspended for the one game that he missed on Friday night. And Nolan Egbert, he played a decent game, right? When you're playing against Babin and you're seeing that few shots, Motor City only had 5 shots in the first period, 9 shots in the second period, and 4 shots in the third period. And, Nolan saved 15 on 18 shots, right? So maybe not the best night for Nolan, but at the same time, I don't think things were going really good after, say, the third period of the first game on Friday for the Black Bears. Too many penalties. Again, in this game, 15 penalty minutes for the Black Bears, 21 penalty minutes for the Motor City Rockers, right? So we definitely had two teams that, in 2 games, 51 penalty minutes for Motor City, maybe 45 penalty minutes for the Binghamton Black Bears. Still, probably more than either team would like this far into the season. Without a doubt, I think this is a game that I think the Black Bears really, really probably, when they left, they were thinking about that one a little bit, right? But that takes us to the third game of the weekend, which happened on Monday, on Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, which the Chiefs and the 49ers probably put off one of the better Super Bowls we've seen in a very long time. And so congratulations to the Chiefs, I guess. I really had no skin in the game and whatnot. So Sunday, February 11th, in Elmira, at First Arena. And Binghamton starts off with a power play and gets a power play goal at the 240 mark, right? Sam Levici was in the starter for this game for the Binghamton Black Bears. And Sammy Bernard was in goal for the Elmira River Sharks. The Austin Thompson scores again the first goal of the game, 2 days in a row, right? This one on a power play with Jesse Anderson and Tyson Kirkby getting the assists. Then in the little bit later on, you had Elmira get a shorthanded goal from Satoris Karagorgias. That's probably wrong, and that's okay. And I'm not going to say his name as many times as it was said here. So we're just going to go with SK scored for Elmira shorthanded. Then Marquise Grant Mentis scored 9:52 into the second period to make this a 2-1 game. Binghamton ties it up at the 18:04 mark with another Andrew Utoro goal, right? So that's pretty good. So we go into the third period, right? And the game is tied 2-2. And you think, okay, that's okay. We can get through this. In the third period, 148 in, Rasmus Asp scores for Elmira. Okay, fine. You're down 3-2, no big deal. About 11 minutes later, David Galletta, he scores on the power play, and then within like a minute and a half later, he scores again on the power play for the Elmira River Sharks, and all of a sudden, boom, this game is out there. It is now 5-2, and honestly, you could see that they were gassed by the end of that. Then with the extra attacker out there, Jesse Anderson scores a goal. Connor Smith, Tyson Kirkby get the assist on that. I think Kirkby got 3 assists on that Sunday game in Elmira. So he assisted on all the goals. Then Elmira gets another goal from Darius Davidson. At the 18:22 mark, that was an empty net goal. Ended the game at 6-3. In this game, there was unfortunately an incident that we're waiting to hear on. Gavin Yates was getting at the same time that Austin Pickford got a penalty for holding, and he was basically hanging on to Gavin Yates, and some were saying that they witnessed a Gavin Yates are getting cross-checked by Austin Pickford a few times, and then he may have kicked the knee of Austin Pickford. In that frustration, he did get a kicking a player match penalty, 5 minutes. That's an ejection, and more than likely an automatic review for a suspension. Now, personally, if you go back, you cannot see it in the video that Elmira had. You can kind of see where Gavin Yates is, but you don't see the kick and everything. Now, sometimes they review this, and the way they review this is that if there's alternate camera angles that weren't shown on YouTube, they would go and send that to the league offices. Now, I heard that the league offices may have been closed today, so there is no thing about whether or not he got suspended. Now, later on in the game as well, there was a fight that Nikita Ivashkin was a part of, and that he may have also been kicked during that fight while he was down. So we don't know, and it'll be interesting to see what the league does with this game. I expect Gavin Yates to probably get something for what happened. And that would be the second time that Gavin Yates, a veteran on this team, may have lost his cool and done something that may hurt the team in the future. So we're going to talk about that probably this upcoming Thursday once we know more. And it could put the Binghamton Black Bears 2 roster spots down going into Wednesday's game. So that'll be very interesting, definitely for sure. This was not the game that I was expecting to see from the Black Bears, because if you want to use the excuse, and it's an excuse, that the Black Bears played tired, that they had a long road trip, well, then you really didn't look at the Elmira River Sharks and what they played and what they did. Because if you do, you'll see that on Friday they played at home against Danbury, then had to travel to Danbury, and then travel back to Elmira. Okay, so their travel was probably just as crappy as the Binghamton Black Bears. So they were in the same position. So we have to think about that for a second. So I just wanted to throw that out there. You know, you can blame the travel, you can blame the schedule, but the schedule was very similar. Okay, so I'm going to quickly just bring up the standings here real quick because I want to talk about something here in the standings. The Binghamton Black Bears are 24-5-6 going into Wednesday's game against Elmira again. Elmira, what's interesting about this, they've won 3 in a row, and that 3 in a row has, put them into 4th place. They are now in a playoff position, and they can truly, truly fight for a playoff position right now. They got 9 points on the weekend. They are now 13-22-0 with 37 points. That's 1 point better than the Watertown Wolves, and they've played the same amount of games as Watertown, same amount of games as Danbury. Danbury is only up on them by 11 points. So the bottom 3 in the Empire Division is a better bottom 3 than I would say the bottom 2 in the Continental Division right now. Okay, so I really truly mean that. And the Empire Division, I think, is a better division. And what I mean by that, there's a little bit more parity. And when you look at Columbus, they're the top team in the league right now. They are playing as good now as the Black Bears were playing a month and a half ago, right? And the Black Bears are stumbling. And depending on how Wednesday game goes will depend on how my conversation on Thursday goes about the Black Bears, right? Because the Black Bears after that have 20 games left. They have 20 games to figure this out and get things righted. And I got to be honest with you folks, if you think about it, the Black Bears really started to falter right around when Matthew Ballard left the team. It's kind of strange, right? Because you don't think of Matthew Ballard as being somebody who keeps the gel of the team together, but it was right around that time period where he and one of the guys got called up, and that really started this kind of like weird thing. Justin Samaro, right? So Justin Samaro, Matthew Ballard, they get called up the same week, and they haven't been back, right? And ever since then, we got Bryce Farrell. Bryce Farrell gets suspended after 2 games played for 7 games, putting us down a man roster, right? So that affects the team. We bring in Jake Schultz. He gets injured. Donald Oliveris didn't play this weekend. Now, he doesn't travel. He's got can't travel-itis. And so that's I mean, it's true, right? You bring in a guy, he's that good. Donald Oliveri is a really good player, and I keep saying that over and over again. So is Jake Schultz. But neither one of them traveled this weekend. And of course, Jake Schultz is on the IR for an upper body or a lower body injury, one of the two, right? But these are the guys you need because you don't have Stanko, you don't have Ballard, you don't have Samaro. Bryce Farrell came in, cost you 7 games of a roster spot, right? Maybe it was a bad call by the league, maybe. But all these things are starting to add up, and the team is starting to falter. You get it's just the way you got to look at it. And I'm sorry, those are the facts. Those are the truths, right? And you can look at it both ways. All right, so let's take a break and let's talk to Dan Wieber. 6 more questions with Dan Wieber. We'll be right back right here on the Power Play Post Show.
You're listening to the Power Play Post Show. Here is another Power Play Post Show interview exclusive with Bob Howard.
We're back with Dan Wieber, and this is 6 more questions with Dan Wieber. Dan, you ready for this?
I believe so. Let's see.
All right. Now, question number 1. To this point in your hockey playing career, what has been your greatest achievement?
I think making it this far, out of just making it to the professional league, even though it is the Fed, I'm happy to be here. This is an amazing team. Looking back at how I wasn't the best one in high school, didn't play on the best team in juniors, it wasn't the standout player in college, but just my personal goal of making it to the pro, it just was accomplished earlier this October, so I believe that's my biggest accomplishment in my hockey career.
All right, cool. Question number 2. Are you a Nintendo, Xbox, or PlayStation player, and what is your go-to game?
I'm a PlayStation guy.
Okay.
I think anyone on the team could answer what game I'm going to say, but I'm a Fortnite guy.
Okay.
I play a lot of Fortnite.
And any particular reason why Fortnite?
Well, it was a free game, and fun free game for me.
Cool. All right. Question number 3. Are you a rock, country, or hip-hop music lover, and who is your go-to artist?
I would say I'm a hip-hop, and I would go Little Baby.
Nice.
He's my favorite hip-hop artist.
Cool. Hey, if I remember correctly, you were one of the few guys that actually wore a cowboy hat during the country night in Binghamton, correct?
Yeah, so country is my second favorite, but it's like a summertime lake thing for me. So like in the winter, I'm just hip hop and rap, pretty consistent. But then in the summer, sun, I'm a country guy. So
gotcha. And
I was just looking at those photos today actually from the country night with the cowboy hat. It's funny.
Yeah, well, and that was your hat too, right? Or did you have to borrow one?
It was Connor Smith. I had to borrow one. So I'm not a real cowboy. No.
Not like Connor is.
Not like Connor.
Okay, number 4. Who is the funniest guy in the locker room?
I would have to go Gavin Yates.
Really? Why is that?
Yeah, he's just that guy. He's always just got a little remark that just makes me laugh, or he's just a guy that's always got the jokes, always laughing.
Well, I will say this. One time I was walking, it was after one of the games, and I was just in Coach Sherwood's office, and I was walking out, and some guy started yelling at Brooksy, "Hey, what are you bringing somebody through the locker room for? Come on, Brooks, what the hell, right?" And I said to Brooks later on, I was like, "Who was that?" He goes, "Oh, that was Connor McNanama. He doesn't like me. He rags on me about everything and whatnot." And he goes, he chirps a lot. So is that true, Connor Mac? Does he chirp a lot?
Oh, yeah, he does. He lets you know when you're around him. Whether he's in net and you're just skating behind the net, he'll let you know. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing? Get over here. Must not have slept good last night," or whatever he says. He's letting you know you're around him.
That's funny. All right, number 5. What is your go-to cheat meal or snack that you would say is not your normal diet? Something that's not in your normal diet that you might go to when you want to have a cheat food or cheat meal?
My biggest go-to snack is like you take a slice of cheese and you put a pickle in it and then wrap it up and then just eat the pickle and cheese.
Okay, that's got to be something from Minnesota, isn't it?
I don't know. It's weird. It's just something, just a slice of cheese wrapped around a pickle and cheese and pickle. That's just the weirdest thing I've ever eaten. Yeah, I'd recommend it.
I'm going to have to try it. Okay. So number 6. Now this one, don't think too hard about this. This is a pretty simple question. A zombie outbreak has happened, and you're locked in a ice hockey arena, right? So any arena in the world, you're stuck in there. Who is the one person, dead or alive, that you would want in there with you during a zombie outbreak?
Dead or alive?
Yeah, it could be anybody.
All right. Huh. This is a tough one. I can't off the top of my head. I would go. Definitely want I'll go bring Josh Fletcher.
Why is that? You've mentioned Josh Fletcher a few times. Why Josh? What is it about you and Josh that you guys get along so well for?
He's been my roommate since day one, and I don't know, we're just two peas in a pod. It's funny being with him. He's a smart, nice guy. Don't tell him I said that, but he's a fun guy to be around for sure.
Awesome.
I think we could battle through the apocalypse together.
Excellent. And that was 6 more questions with Dan Wieber. We'll be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
If you're a Binghamton hockey fan, then you need to check out binghamtonhockey.net. for all your news, stats, information, the Binghamton Hockey Hall of Fame, top 10 lists, profiles, and so much more. That's binghamtonhockey.net. You're listening to the Power Play Post Show.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. That was Dan Wieber. I very much enjoyed getting to know Dan Wieber, and I hope you did too. And obviously, I'm going to have Josh Fletcher on this show because Dan Wieber is a big fan of Josh Fletcher. All right, so to follow up the last part of the weekend games, this was the first win in Motor City for the Black Bears as a franchise. Did not win in Fraser, Michigan last year. Still 3-1-0 versus the Rockers with only one more game left on Saturday, March 30th, near the end of the season. Elmira was on a winning streak, beating Danbury twice before beating the Black Bears on Sunday. There, I got a 3-game winning streak. And by the way, if you don't know, the Columbus River Dragons are on a 13-game winning streak. Best team in the league right now, have not faltered at all this year. Binghamton plays Elmira on Wednesday. That is in just a couple days, completing a 4 games in 6 game stretch before having the next 9 days off. And I believe the Elmira River Sharks are actually playing like 6 games in 9 days. They have a really sick schedule that they're doing right now. But they've won their last 3. So, and honestly, depending on what happens with Gavin Yates, the status of Gavin Yates with suspension looming, we'll talk more about that on Thursday's show. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. Does he get suspended for a long period of time? Do they review it and not find that he did a match penalty quality thing? Maybe it's just 1 game for the kick, and that type of thing. If it's only 1 game, that might be good. But it really depends. I know this league is trying to look at these things and trying to set examples, right? And obviously, they might look at Gavin, and they just might look at Coach Sherwood's team right now. I would have to say, unfortunately, there is probably a perception about Gavin Yates' team. Now, I do want to pay a special thank you to Taylor Welch. Taylor and Jeremy went out to Motor City, and then they were in Elmira, and they were feeding me some information at the rink about the game. I was watching both games, but they're kind of looking inside. So Taylor was kind of like our correspondent. I really want to thank her for that. Now, she also just made a post on the Binghamton Black Bears fan page, and I wanted to bring this up because I found it very interesting. So here, in our first 7 games against Elmira, we've both had 74 penalty minutes, okay? So she basically started breaking down penalty minutes, who had what and everything. And I thought this was a great thing to bring up and talk about. So you should go to the Binghamton Black Bears fan page and look at Taylor's post from about an hour ago on Monday and take a look at it. In our first 7 games against Elmira, we both had 74 penalty minutes. In our 13 games against Danbury so far, which means we have 5 more games against Danbury, we've had 91 penalty minutes to their 93. Our 7 games against Watertown, we've had 46 penalty minutes to their 76. So 46 to 76. As we all know, there was the one game where Tate Leeson and Trevor Ford, they really racked up some penalty minutes, some 10-minute penalties. 4 games against Carolina, we had 36. They had 31. 4 games against Motor City, and most of those against Carolina had to be in that one kind of blowout crazy game that we lost down there. 4 games against Motor City, we've had 29 to their 31. The rest that we've seen the most of, I'm not going to go over that because she just puts up the numbers and everything. This is how many times players have had penalties. Now, this is interesting. I didn't expect this, right? And I actually talked about this with Taylor a little bit beforehand. 15 penalties for JT Walters. Boulard had 21. He hasn't been with us for about 6 or 7 games now. Dan Wieber's had 19 penalty minutes. Gavin Yates has had 18. Fletcher has had 17. Ivashkin, Thompson, and Logar have had 15. Samaro and Bond. Actually, I read that wrong. Boulard has had 21, 19 for Wieber, 18 for Yates and Fletcher, 17 for Ivashkin, Thompson, and Logar, 15 penalty minutes, or 15 penalties. the amount of penalties. Samaro and Bond, 13 penalties for Kirkby, 12 for Smith and Oliveri. Right, I'm surprised with Oliveri. He hasn't played as many games and he's had 12 penalties. 9 for Mac Lewis, 8 for Bond or Bone, depending on who you're listening to, and Anderson and the Andersons, both Andersons. Actually, it's 8 for both Andersons. 7 for Jesso, who's not on the team anymore. 5 for Coach. So Coach Sherwood has had 5 penalties, which is crazy. Thomas Ray has also had 5. Jake Schultz has only had 4, but he hasn't been here that long. Farrell, only 3. Stone with only 3. Uturo, new guy, with only 1. Levechi with only 1. And Stanko with only 1, which is interesting. I find this very, very interesting, right? I did not expect JT Walters to have had 25 penalty minutes. Now, a lot of those have had to be the 2-minute varieties, and without a doubt, I would imagine that he kind of racks up there in the penalty minutes because he does lead the team in penalty minutes. JT Walters does, I think, with 82. But you got to remember, he also had that one game where he got like 2 10-minute misconducts. So, there's that as well. I just find that very interesting. Thanks for Taylor for putting those numbers together, because I think those numbers, kind of tell a story maybe about how a player is playing or maybe how they react, right? And one of the things that we can certainly say is that sometimes Binghamton does not react well when things are going bad. And that's something that has to change if they want to win a championship. I'm telling you right now, just because a guy cross-checks you 4 times, you got to look at that referee and see if that referee is actually calling a penalty minute. You know what I mean? Because if he is, you don't want to react. You got to start thinking about the future and not about what's happening in the present when you're in the games. I know that's tough to say. I know it's easy for me to say, tough for them to do, but that's really what it comes down to. So I just wanted to bring that up and everything. So that's it. Tough weekend. Only 3 points, possible 9. We kind of square up with Motor City. They didn't gain anything. We didn't lose anything really. So, they got 3, we got 3. First 2-game regulation losses in a row for the Binghamton Black Bears. Realistically, they've only got 5 on the season, 5 regulation losses. That's not horrible. You can't beat them down, but there are definitely things that need to get fixed. First, got to get through the game in Elmira, possibly without Gavin Yates, and possibly being down 2 roster spots. You get Bryce Farrell coming back after that. The Black Bears also have 9 games off coming up, right? Or 9 days off coming up. So there's that to think about. I think there's definitely, I am going to be at the rink probably on the 20th, which is a Tuesday, and hopefully be able to, talk to a couple more of the Black Bears and get maybe some interviews for the show and be around practice. And I'm also going to probably talk to Dylan, the equipment manager, and get a segment recorded with him as well, because I really want to bring his stuff to him. Thank you, Dylan. If you're listening to this, Dylan, thank you so much for sending me the video, talking to me so early in the morning, because I know he probably got almost no sleep, probably less sleep than the players, honestly. The kid had so much to do. Dry out. First of all, if you're a hockey parent, you know what it means to have pads, jerseys, equipment drying somewhere in your house or maybe in the garage and everything, because you didn't want to smell up the house. But imagine having all that hockey equipment inside of a hotel on a floor somewhere, just everywhere. And that was crazy. And I don't know if Dylan really got truly any sleep. He said he got a few hours. I don't know if that's true. I don't know. I know. Maybe there's no way it was good sleep. He probably slept really good Sunday night. He probably didn't even watch the Super Bowl. I'll guarantee you, if I message him right now, he'll say he did not stay up the whole night for the Super Bowl. But either way, so that's it for this show. I'll be back on Thursday. We got Nolan Egbert on the show to talk to us and everything. So that's very cool. Our weekend wrap-up show next Sunday, if I do one, because the guys aren't going to play, we'll be talking about possibly maybe the Elmira game. No, the Elmira game I'm going to cover on Thursday's show anyways. So we'll see what happens for next Sunday's show, as there is no games to talk about. But we'll see. Maybe we'll have a guest. Maybe I'll record with another guest before then. So either way, thanks for listening, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. Glad to have you on. Glad to have you aboard and listening. I appreciate it. Let's see how they do on Wednesday versus the Elmira River Sharks. And I am Bob Howard. I'm your host. Thank you for listening to the Power Play Post Show. And I didn't read my final stuff like I normally do. The Power Play Post Show is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on whichever platform you listen to your podcast and subscribe. Please join the Power Play Post Show Facebook group. Just go to Facebook and search for the Power Play Post Show and subscribe. Please check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your Binghamton hockey information and curiosity. And thank you to Rob Lapolis, our MC, John Petitucci, our musical director, and Binghamton Black Bears defenseman Dan Wieber for answering 6 more questions with Dan Wieber. On our February 15th show, we'll be talking with our second Binghamton Black Bears netminder, Nolan Egbert. I am Bob Howard. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Power Play Post Show. Be sure to tune in next week to the Box Studios Radio Network for all the latest Black Bears news and interviews from around minor league hockey. The Power Play Post Show would like to thank John Patitucci for all the music you hear on the show. You've been listening to the Power Play Post Show.